Happy Monday, happy Monday, happy Monday, everybody. This is Kira Gladney, and this is another episode of the Charitea Movement Podcast. I'm so excited about this episode today because we are going to talk about the processes of healing. So, we know that healing is the children's bread. Like, God desires for us to be healed and whole and complete. But a lot of times we don't know those steps to healing or how to grieve well. Have you ever heard about grieving well? So, I have the perfect person today to talk to us. Just a little introduction about her. I met the healing strategist. I met her at a vision board party. Okay. So I was not even going to go, but I just felt like I needed to go to get out of the funk that I was in. Okay. For a lot of people that know Charity Movement and me and the reason why I do what I do, I was in postpartum depression. I was going through a lot and it felt like nobody really could pull me out of that rut. But I met this woman who basically gave me a wake-up call about myself and my healing and grieving. And I don't even really know if she even understands what she did for me, but she just spoke life to these dry bones with regard to moving out of my dead space and growing into who I am today. So I want to introduce to you my guest for today, Miss Felicia Johnson-McGee. Thank you so much for coming to the Charity Movement.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored and glad to be here to serve your audience and to share your platform. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
You are so welcome. It is an honor just to have you on the podcast because just how transparent you are, how you encourage people to be healed people, and you encourage them throughout the healing process. And that's something that a lot of people don't do. So thank you for what you give to us. Thank
Yes,
you.
you are welcome.
So, okay, the first question is, where did you get your nickname from? Where did that come from?
The nickname, the healing strategist, is interesting. It really came through survey of people um, through things that they had said to me, remarked, and commented through encounters with me. It just the name kind of became birth without even realizing it. For many years, people commented to the fact of when we were in interactions and encounters, they were experiencing healing. Um, I had
Mm.
um, I had one friend of mine. She said, "You are like a surgeon."
Oh,
The way your words go in before we know it, the term would just birth, and people would when I would interact with people, they were like, "You are truly a healing strategist." So I was like, "Okay, I'm a healing strategist." And there it is.
wow. So that is amazing. And it shows that our reputation will precede us. Like what we do is way more than what we think. And what we say is so important because we know that life and death is in the power of the tongue. So it speaks profoundness that you are able to speak life into others. That's amazing. So I was, I stalk you from time to time. And, and I saw that you were awarded a certificate for your membership in the American Institute of Stress. How important was that for you to go about those steps to gain that certificate?
It was very important to become a member of the Institute, American Institute of Stress. I'm also a member of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness,
Mm,
and these memberships are important to me. They're vital to me because I have experienced in my life a severe emotional trauma, complex post traumatic stress response, depression, anxiety. I currently walk through that journey and that battle. I know that stress is a big part of that
yeah.
experience. And so, aligning myself with agencies that provide the education and the tools and the resources to help people to become more knowledgeable, having self knowledge and awareness of how to walk through and deal with stress to restore calm to themselves was really key as I continue my journey in coaching. I'm a stress resilience coach. And so those things, it was important to me to have the supports, the tools, and somewhat of the endorsement, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. That that is amazing because I didn't even know about a stress resilience coach until today.
Oh,
Need to set up an
wow.
appointment. So, but as moms, even as parents in general, we go through everyday stress that we don't even realize. And I remember a conversation that we had just regarding stress. And you were asking me, well, have you ever gone through any ailments? And I'm like, yeah, at the time, I wasn't healed or anything from scoliosis. So I'm like, I got scoliosis. And you're like, where do you feel the most pressure when you're stressed? I'm like, girl, my back. And you was like, duh. So I'm like, man, I didn't even realize how those issues, the trauma, the stress, the pressure that we feel can show up in different parts of our bodies. And we don't even realize it. We don't even realize it.
And that's what's amazing now. My biggest journey, and let me say this to the audience because I think it's important to put the disclaimer out because I'm often asked, am I a therapist, a social worker, a psychiatrist, a psychologist? Actually, I hold none of those titles. And what I share with people, I let them know like this is not medical. This is not designed to treat, manage, or diagnose. But I do, as a stress and resilience coach, I do know that it's important for me to have the knowledge and the tools that come along with dealing with stress. And the way that neuroscience has emerged over the past, I would just say over the past 10 years, it has really given us a view into how stress, because we always hear, right,
Yeah.
stress kills, but what does that mean? Right?
Yeah.
What does it mean when we say stress kills? And so we don't realize that our bodies, our brains, we have a stress response system. And
Wow.
it's that system that once it becomes activated, it sets everything else in motion. And of course, now the those of those the people who are speaking about neuroscience and things like that, they're talking about, and even in the community of physicians and things like that, they're beginning to delve into respect and talk more about the mind body connection.
Wow. Wow. That says a lot. That says a lot about teaching us what we do not know about ourselves. So,
Yes.
how is healing and counseling and combing through those traumas that you've experienced? How has that been so important in your life, in your growth?
It's been tantamount, and I'll tell you why. I had a history of childhood sexual abuse, of domestic violence, not with my husband. Because people are like, she says that all
What?
the time. What does that mean, right?
Right.
I have a history with complex trauma, and actually, I have experienced abuse on the gamut. I've experienced trauma, on this spectrum, religious trauma, which we term it's labeled church hurt. So
Right.
what I'm saying is I have experienced trauma in so many ways in my life, and the injury that it's caused, having trauma induced mental illness is what it's currently termed still. There are some advocates working to change that term, that it's actually mental injury and response, because
Yeah.
again, our brain is designed to uh, respond when we experience events that are threatening, where we feel unsafe. Our brain is designed to respond to protect us. And so it was
Yeah.
really important for me in doing this, what I call trauma work, which really I started doing my trauma work about 7 years ago.
Wow.
So I have not been doing it over a lifetime. I've started to delve deeper into the trauma about 7 years ago. I had not even been able to say aloud before that time that I was a victim of childhood sexual abuse, domestic violence. There were very few people, and when I say few people, I'm talking about besides key intimate people, one being my husband and maybe a couple other people that were close to me, that knew that I had this history.
Wow. 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 So, in all of that, how did you become the woman that you are today?
Self knowledge, self awareness, and being willing to take ownership, not blame,
Mhm.
because the things that happened to me weren't my fault, but to take ownership of my experiences in a way where I could say, while I don't have to accept the blame for what people did to me, because that's really what happens when people are victimized. There is an element of shame that is reinforced through others that we take on. But by doing those things, the self knowledge, self awareness, and being willing to take ownership of what had happened to me, it allowed me to become more resilient. You know,
Wow.
it allowed me to start to confront these problems instead of avoid, deny, and lie about them.
Wow. Yeah. I think it's very amazing that you bring that point up, because so many times you have women, young girls, you have people who have been injured by a lot of the traumas that they've experienced. And instead of them walking in that self knowledge and that self awareness and that love for themselves enough to know it was not my fault, they live in this reality of, this is just life. Like, this is just what's supposed to happen. And I think some of us have to shake ourselves and say, no, that was not supposed to happen. That's not normal. That's not
Yes.
normal. That's not how love is expressed. That's not how love is supposed to be, done. And I think that it's amazing that you are an example to so many of what that looks like.
And I'll tell you too, Kira, I'm still learning about myself. I recently was sitting with the psychiatrist speaking about some things in my past. About 16 years old, just to share this story briefly, I had at the time, I'm 51, I had at the time what we understood to be a nervous breakdown. Well, really talking with my psychiatrist recently, she said, you probably had postpartum psychosis because I had had a baby, and the baby was my oldest son, was born with cerebral palsy, had so many health issues. I was young, and I had fallen into such a deep cycle of depression to where I wasn't eating, I wasn't bathing, I wasn't brushing my teeth, I
Mm.
wasn't able to really take care of myself. And I had an encounter where I had a conflict with a family member to the point that I ran outside of the house and I was flailing in the ground like a dog. And that was my first time being admitted into the psychiatric ward. I was 16 years old. But revisiting that story with my psychiatrist, I didn't even realize that I probably had postpartum
Yeah.
psychosis. As much as I've learned in these past years, you know, nobody,
Yeah.
nobody had ever had that discussion with me. Like, what made me do that?
Yeah.
And she said it in a recent session, and I was like, oh my God. It's like it so made sense. And the shame from the conversation lifted off of my shoulders. Because here I
Yeah.
was been thinking I had something wrong with me all the time, but I
Yeah.
was experiencing postpartum psychosis.
Yeah. I listen, postpartum psychosis is something that I didn't hear anything about until after I had a baby. And I was having conversations with people like, what is wrong with me? I don't want to do anything for myself. I don't want to wake up in the morning. I don't want to live anymore. Like, what is wrong with me? And I remember talking to a therapist, and I remember talking to you, and I'm like, I remember praying before I had my meeting with you. And I'm like, God, I just really want to understand how to be back to myself. I don't really know who I am anymore. And I was talking to you, and I'm like, postpartum. So I started researching, and I went to my therapist, and I'm like, this is why I don't want to do anything. This is why. This is why. And it all started connecting for me. And the interesting thing is, the moment that I opened up my mouth, women, women that I went to church with, women that I work with, women that in my family started telling me about, oh, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know that anybody around us experienced that. And so I say that because how important is it for you to share your story even when it's not convenient?
When you say that, the importance of sharing your story, I love a quote by Maya Angelou that says, "There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story
Whew.
inside of you." I love that quote, and I may not even be quoting it exact. I may be paraphrasing it a bit, but it's true. There is nothing that gives you greater agony. There is nothing that deepen and intensifies shame more than carrying the secrets,
Mm,
many of which others have imposed on you,
yep.
that you feel responsible for. It's like you have a locker vault. I had a locker vault full of secrets from the age of 6 when my a friend of my family raped me. Yes, at 6 years old. I had a locker vault full of secrets from when I was being sexually abused from the time I was a toddler until I was 12 years old. And then I went into being promiscuous. And by the time I was done, I was in a relationship at 14 with a boy 3 years older than me and became pregnant by the age of 15. So, see what I'm saying? There's this, the reason that it's important for me to share my story, as I term, or my coin term is, give my pain a voice, let my feelings breathe, is because bearing that untold story is like being in a prison.
Mm,
And the moment that you give your pain a voice, you open a gateway to healing.
yeah. I thought of two things in the book of Revelation. It says, and they overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, as well as knowing that darkness and light have no fellowship. And so when
Exactly.
you put light on that secret, it no longer can terrorize you. It can no
Yeah.
longer, keep you from sleeping at night, keeping you from growing and progressing in your life. And this is why we have to learn to be at such a vulnerable place where healing is going to become imminent because you open up your mouth. And
Mhm.
like you said, you give that pain a voice. I've never heard it that way, but that resonates so much with me. Man, I'm not gonna cry. I don't get through a podcast without crying. Okay, that's what's gonna happen today. So okay. So do you ever feel pressure to be anything other than yourself? Like, do you ever feel the pressure to, I don't know. Do you feel pressure at all?
You know what? I'll admit I have felt that pressure. As of late, I find, one, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm in midlife. And it really is true. I think what people say, as you get older, you find that you just feel less inhibited.
Yeah.
Some of the filters come down. I have been in that place where I felt pressure to be myself. Um, Lately, and when I say lately, I'm talking about the last 2 years or so, that pressure has subsided greatly. One, because I have to live in the honesty, right? I have to
Right.
have clarity about what's happening with me. And in order to take ownership of my healing, this is something that I teach when I do workshops. I tell women that the abuse, the trauma, the neglect, the abandonment you feel, it's kind of like a bag of garbage, right? And somebody uh takes that garbage and they dump it all over you. It's smelly, it's stinky, flies around it, gnats.
Yeah.
But then that person takes off. They're on the run and you're standing there with all this garbage on you. Well,
Yeah.
here's what you could do. You can take time to try to trace the person down who poured that garbage on you, Or you could say, man, this really sucks. This really stinks. It's not fair. But guess what? I got to clean it up.
Yeah.
And no,
Yeah.
it's not fair to have to clean up somebody else's garbage. It's not fair to have to deal with issues that are those of your caregivers or those who have taken advantage of you. But the truth is, taking ownership, again, not taking blame, but taking ownership, saying, you know what? I mean, this might sound kind of gross, but if you get sick to the stomach and you vomit something up and you're by yourself, who's cleaning it up?
You.
You. And that's sometimes what healing looks like.
Yeah.
And so when I came to realize that, that helped me be okay. Like, you might not get me, you might not like what I have to say, it may make you uncomfortable, but me being able to do this work helps me to accept myself, helps me to be okay with who I am without being afraid. And honestly, the platforms that I've had to share my story and to be transparent about my struggles have emboldened me more
Yeah.
to be here and be clear. This is
Okay.
what it is.
Be here and be clear. You
Mhm.
need to make that a shirt. Um. Okay. Be here and be clear, and then put dash sign the healing strategist. Okay.
Yes.
Get that money this year. Okay. So 2020 was a struggle for everybody. Okay. It was a tumultuous year. And I know that you personally, it was a battle for you as well as your husband. How did you maneuver all of that, plus everything that you've already dealt with and fighting and really getting to that healing for those things?
Yeah, uh that's definitely been a process. I'll tell you that one, I received so much support. That was one of the ways that I made it through, from my pastor and first lady, who are not just my leaders, but my friends, from my immediate family. When Andre went into the hospital, our family came together and they started a prayer call. And we were on that prayer call praying every 2 hours. Not every 2 hours, but 2 times a day. I'm sorry. 2 times a day, we were on that
Wow.
call praying. And so that was supportive to me. My doctor, who actually stayed in touch with me, like, she allowed me to text her personally. Um, I also, began to take antidepressant and anti-anxiety meds because, knowing what I know about mental health and how important it is, even though I had all these practices that I had been using to help me cope with all this history of abuse and trauma throughout my life, my coping strategies were blown out of the water when my husband became ill. I mean,
Yeah.
right? It's nothing like, it's something when it's somebody so close, like your
Yeah.
husband, that person is
Yeah.
truly, the Bible talks about the two become one.
Mm-hmm.
You sometimes you realize, we've been married almost 28 years, like, when I think, he can say what I'm thinking when he thinks, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was just,
Absolutely.
it was all of those things: having support, having prayer, having my mental health supports through medication and therapies. And now I wasn't able to go out for therapy, but I was able to do some things myself too, with what I've learned. And
Yeah.
then I had people supporting me. And so those things were really important. I tell people, the biggest thing, the greatest thing you can have when you're going through something is support. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that people necessarily can physically do something, but we really don't always grasp the power of just being there,
Yeah.
helping a person to realize that they are not alone. That
Absolutely.
is so huge, so huge. And so those
Absolutely.
things really were helpful to me.
Absolutely. That is amazing. And even looking at your journey through social media, and I know that when I saw it, I of course, started praying, and my husband was praying, and I told my church, I'm like, oh, y'all pray too, because It's so true. A lot of times people don't even need to, see you face to face. They just need to know that you care and that you are concerned with their well being. That's so important.
And prayer has an energy, right? Prayer has an energy that moves beyond where we are physically.
Yeah.
So many times, the thing that we can do best, praying for someone or just saying, hey, I'm here. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It means so much. And so the energy of those prayers, I felt them. And sometimes people came on and they let me know they were praying. And sometimes my husband told me this when he was in the hospital. He said, I knew that people were praying for me. He said,
Ooh.
because even though I was out of it, he said, I could feel. I,
Wow.
he literally felt, he said, I could feel the energy of prayer bringing me back to my body when I
Wow.
flatlined. He said,
Wow.
he said he felt that. He felt that prayer. And that's why I believe that prayer is so important. I do believe other things are important as well, but I believe in the power of prayer. That's why when I talk with people, when I say, what do you do when prayer is not enough? Sometimes people hear me say that and they think that I'm saying that prayer is powerless. No, I'm saying that even though you're praying, you still have to attend to your physical, your psychological, and your emotional self.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah.
You still have to do the things that you do. One example, and then we can move on. I love the story in the Bible where Jesus, he's going to pray and he asks the disciples to come and for be with him for an hour to pray. And there comes a point in time where Jesus becomes aware, like he pays attention to the disciples and notice that they've fallen asleep.
Right.
And he said, could you not pray with me for 1 hour?
1 hour.
And you know that when we hear that message, we've heard it preached different ways. But here's what comes to me out of that is we see the humanity, and Jesus said, I needed your support.
Right.
I just needed you guys to be here.
Yep.
Could you not give the attention and the energy in this moment, in a moment that's dire for me, to be available?
Yeah.
Because being around doesn't mean that you're available.
Woo. Okay. That. Ooh. Okay. There's, and I know that last year and this year has really been so important to know that some of those situations you really have to start identifying the good weight and the dead weight.
Yeah,
Because in that moment, you realize, dang, all he was asking you was not just to pray, but to be alert.
exactly.
And sometimes we allow people to go through things and you're there, you're standing there, but you're not alert. And
Exactly.
this is why a lot of people around us don't see the signs of us dealing with things that we can't fight by ourselves,
Exactly.
So
We have to learn to listen not only with our ears, but with our eyes.
yes. Woo! Feel the tears. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. Okay. So what are three adjectives that you would use to describe yourself?
Definitely resilient.
Absolutely.
Most certainly compassionate
Yes.
and empathic. I am a feeler. I feel into the experiences of others. I think that what enables me to use the skills that the creator, my source, God, however people would identify with spirituality, what allows me to do that is that the ability to feel into people's pain and to hold space for it. Another wonderful story I love, and I was talking to my husband about this the other day, the woman with the issue of blood, when she touches Jesus and she touches the hem of his garment, and he says, who touch me? And,
Right.
the disciples said, it's a whole crowd out here following you. What do you mean touch me? But really what it was, there was a vibrant exchange. This woman desired her healing so much. The energy to heal and the desire to heal was so vibrant and resonant that when she touched him, she drew the energy of healing out of him into her body. And
Mm,
that connection was so powerful that when Jesus felt it, he said, wait a minute. Even though everybody around him is touching him and in his space,
yes.
he felt somebody that others considered insignificant.
Yeah.
And that is what I desire to embody, the nature of the Savior, in a way that when you encounter me, whatever you have going on, our energy connects and you feel an exchange, a
Yeah.
pull. And hear me clearly, I'm a person with flaws. I have foibles. I got stuff I'm struggling with just like the rest of you. But it's important, I have it as an intention inside of myself that when people encounter me and they're in pain, and when I feel that pain, that the energy I have inside of myself is so resonant of Jeremiah 30 and 17, that the Lord will restore you to health and he will heal your wound. I want people to feel that come out of my spirit. And
Yeah.
so empathy, being empathetic and being empathic are things that are a part of who I feel I am.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is amazing that that is your desire. That's remarkable. That's remarkable. Okay. So before we end this podcast today, do you have anything that you are working on? Anything that you would like to announce for our listeners who are now going to follow you? What would you like to tell them or announce to them?
I do have a program coming forward. It was due at the top of the year, but some different things in life happened. But I'm looking to launch this in March. It's going to be a coaching program that I'm going to launch, and it's a stress resilience program that we're going to help women
Okay.
identify things that cause emotional exhaustion.
Okay.
We're going to be able to understand mental overdrive so that we can restore calm and the feeling of safety to our bodies. And I'm going to share some of the key distressing techniques that I myself have used, as well as resources that I have found available to do that.
Awesome. That is amazing. And I will make sure that when I see it, I share it on our Facebook pages and things like that, so that everyone can see it and take part in it. Thank you so much for coming on the Charity Movement Podcast. It was an honor to have you here. I'm so excited. I'm so
Thank
happy.
you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to have this platform. And thank you for being a healing source for me as well. I tell people all the time as they remark about their encounters with me and how they feel healed. Healing is a co regulation state. We never heal alone, we heal synonymously with one another. And that's why it's really important who we engage with, interact with, and have around our life. Dealing with each other, we should create safety around the environment of who we are, so that when people come into our environment, they experience healing. And I have experienced that with you. So I
Thank
thank you
you.
for gifting me with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can't wait till COVID kind of subsides. I can see you in person because you are a ray of sunshine. And I do
Thank
appreciate you. So glad that God is continuously healing your husband and everything. And your story is amazing. I would love for you guys to find her on social media so that you can really see their story together and all the things that she has gone through, even just in 2020, and how they've gotten through it. So thank you so much for everyone who tuned in today. I hope that you like, share, and subscribe on the video as well as our audio podcast as well, that's available on every streaming platform. And remember that the only one stopping you is you. See you soon.
Take care.